America, my name is Osei-Frimpong, and we're going to talk about Black fatherhood today. And the comparison I want to draw is between two very prominent fathers. One of them is Richard Williams. The other one is Archie Manning, right? Archie Manning, you might know, is the father of Peyton Manning and Eli Manning. Both have a Super Bowl ring. Very impressive to win a Super Bowl ring. Not an easy thing to do. You also understand that Archie Manning was a college football quarterback at Ole Miss in the 60s and 60s. I think he graduated in 67. So yeah, either 67 or he may have gotten there in 67, maybe graduated in 71. Anyway, he was a college football quarterback at Ole Miss. Right? So we're talking about a few generations of knowledge that created Peyton Manning and Eli Manning. You know what Ole Miss didn't have? Black quarterbacks. Matthew, hit the beat.
To the beat, yo.
Yeah. Sound good to me. Never change the ways for the world or the government. If I was the president, then I would state facts. You leave it up to me, I'll paint the White House black and ain't no future in your front.
So, life in America has gotten very complicated in late modernity. It takes, and I think Oakeshott was right, and then John Adams said something very serious, but it's more true now than it's ever been. It takes 3 generations to make a career. You need to know too much about too many different things in order to make it in America now. And at the community level, not necessarily your grandparents, but like it might be your institution. How old is your church? If it's 3 generations long, then the people have been there long enough that like you might be able to learn things from people in your church. And we just have to look at where your people, and 3 generations ago, America decided your people were your skin color people, where your people were 3 generations ago. Right? 3 generations ago, black people in America were not doing so hot. 3 generations ago, according to Ira Katz-Nelson, 75% of the black labor force in the South and 60% nationwide were sharecroppers, some sort of farm workers, or domestic help. So, in terms of generational knowledge, we're pretty good at being exploited labor and cleaning things. So, that matters. That matters because we don't have the quality of critical mass of, for example, quarterbacks.
They put us on the field a lot, but they don't let us throw the ball.
They don't let us throw the ball, make decisions,
No.
call plays.
Decisions. Oh, God.
Yeah, no, black quarterbacks have only been here for about 10 minutes. So you're not going to get the 3rd generation. You're not going to get the 3rd generation black quarterback, the 2nd generation black quarterback. Yeah.
And if they say the wrong thing, they don't have jobs anymore.
And if that's football. Yeah, football, you get cut.
Don't stand up for something.
Yeah, like Kaepernick. Like there are no 3 generations of black quarterbacks. We have 3 generations of black running backs, but it's not the same, right? We want our people to be in the jobs where you get to keep your knees and your hips and your head. So like we want to be in those kinds of jobs. So you don't have 2nd generation NFL quarterbacks. You're barely starting to get 2nd generation professional black athletes. But with the 2nd generation professional black athletes are doing pretty well. Like there's a reason why Seth Curry is very good at his job. It happens when you have a dad who is very good at that job.
What? Oh, I can't remember the other father with the 2 sons that are going to be amazing.
The 2nd generation basketball players are going to be better than 1st generation 2nd generation professional basketball players are going to be better than 1st generation basketball players. And we would have, until now I want to segue from Archie Manning to another very good father, Richard Williams. Complicated relationship with Richard Williams. But before I say anything about Richard Williams, can you cue the Richard Williams? That's a 5-minute one. Yep. Let's watch a little bit of video with Richard Williams and about Richard Williams.
Now we want to introduce you to a proud father, a man who is pushing his daughter, Venus Williams, to be the best in the world.
Good racket speed. Good racket speed. Speed that racket head up. Richard Williams, who supposedly bought a book or some DVD or something and sort of said, I'm going to teach these kids how to play tennis in some really tough part of Los Angeles.
Straight out of Compton.
We grew up on Stockton Street, Compton, California, 90221. That's where we grew up. And I'm going to tell you something, there was nothing remotely unhood about it.
You got to win. No, you're going to win. Aren't you? You going to win for us? Good girl. That's all that's necessary.
How do you feel the way you're hitting the ball right now?
Good, Daddy.
Okay, how about your feet? Your feet moving well?
No, Daddy.
How about yours?
Yes.
Very good. So what we want to do, don't get excited. This is your game.
Richard was going around and begging private country clubs like Riviera Country Club and others to give him their used balls. And he would then fill up a shopping cart in an old Volkswagen bus.
We didn't talk on the phone. We didn't go to school parties and all that stuff. But somehow I don't feel like I missed out. I mean, there's probably a few things I wanted to go to, but I figured I wasn't going to go, so I didn't ask. And anyway, most of the time I was at practice.
She was, I guess, the guinea pig, in a sense.
Venus, absolutely. There was so much pressure on her to become a great player. Richard was talking about it every single day to every newspaper in the country. So she definitely she had it the toughest.
If you're down with your feet flat like a 97-year-old person, you'll never be a tennis player.
Richard was very, very protective, and he generally would never let anyone around the girls. He was extremely protective because he had seen so much. Richard Williams was from Shreveport, Louisiana, and came from a very small town, and he was raised by a single mother who instilled in him some really great values. But the things that Richard saw transformed his thinking and his outlook really on everything, and justifiably so. He had seen men beaten. He had seen people denied opportunity. He grew up in an era where the colored only sign was standard.
A lot of things went wrong here. Right here is where 6 or 7 guys helped me down and actually took a nail that goes in a cross tie and nailed that sucker right into my leg. The reason they would do something like this is simply because I wouldn't call them mister. And I don't think it was fair for me to call no one mister that always called me boy and nigger and always trying to kill me.
Did you think you could beat her?
I know I can beat her.
You know you can beat her. Very confident.
I'm very confident.
You say it so easily. Why?
Because I believe it.
Cut right here, if you don't mind, and let me tell you what. What she has said, she said it with so much confidence the first time. But if you keep going on and on,
Listen, we can't keep interrupting. I mean, if you want...
You got to understand that you're dealing with an image of a 14-year-old child. And this child gonna be out there playing when your old ass and me gonna be in the grave. When she says something, we done told you what's happening. You're dealing with a little black kid, and let her be a kid. She done answered it with a lot of confidence. Leave that alone. What do you feel inside when you're on the court?
I feel good. I feel good.
What didn't I do to try to copy Venus when I was younger? I mean, her favorite color was my favorite color. Her favorite animal was my favorite animal. She wanted to win Wimbledon. I wanted to Wimbledon.
She is tennis prodigy Venus Williams, and she's also our Sportswoman of the Week.
It was very difficult being in the shadow of Venus because ever since I can remember, Venus was always in the newspapers and always, in the press.
I wish your feet keep moving like that. As long as they move like that, that's really good,
I was never supposed to be good. I was never the one that was supposed to be like a great player, but I was determined not to become a statistic. So that's the only reason I played tennis. And, I was a copycat, basically.
Serena, she didn't have that power when she first started, so she had to try to beat you different ways. She would hit angles, she was trying drop shots, and then once she got her power level up, her serve became as dominant as Venus's.
Game, Miss Williams.
All right, so that was Richard Williams. And I got to tell you, I think it's a very actually powerful, I have a lot of respect for Richard Williams. I have a daughter now, so these things go through my mind pretty often. Understand what you just saw. He said that when he was a boy, a bunch of white boys beat a cross tie into him in Shreveport. What is that?
Mississippi.
Louisiana. Shreveport. Yeah, Shreveport's in Louisiana. Yeah. And now, and then, 35 years later, he is going around to white country clubs begging them for their old tennis balls because he needs like a shopping cart full of tennis balls in order to teach his daughters to play tennis. Right? That kind of humility is not what even good white fatherhood is about. That kind of humility is not even... And Archie Manning played quarterback at Ole Miss and was drafted, right? Richard Williams, he didn't know anything about tennis. I was in LA, and then I read another biography about him. He said, I took a lesson or two for kicks from this guy they called him Old Whiskey. And then realized that I think I can teach this to my daughters. Do you understand first of all, do you understand how technical tennis as a game is? So he's like he got this DVD about a book on how to learn tennis and listen to Old Whiskey. And then he would have to go out there with his daughters and like act as if he knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah, because you can't teach somebody if they see any doubt in you.
Yeah, exactly. He had to pretend that he knows about footwork. He was figuring this out as he was teaching his daughters. That's a quality of genius from nothing, from a video, and then like, what do you think, Old Whiskey? But he can't show any of that in front of them. He has to go as if he's as if they're Peyton Manning and Eli Manning and he's Archie Manning, except with none of the knowledge of the sport that Archie Manning had and was just kind of faking it. And that's the instability and insecurity of black life when we come from what we come from. But that's also the genius, and I'll say genius, of black fatherhood. Like, all right, so I do have two daughters, and I think about this stuff all the time. And I also teach philosophy at the University of Georgia. In my class, we were talking about risk and risk pooling and risk like holidays. Like we pool risk in some communities, and then we give other communities entire holidays full of risk. And is that fair? And were you taught to take up your fair share of risk? Most of my students are white people. Were you taught to take your fair share of risk, or were you taught to avoid risk and make other people get a disproportionate share of risk? And your job is to avoid risk at any problem. So I asked the girls, and we were doing like low-level risk things, like, have you ever asked a boy out? And this is the South, so none of the girls raised their hand. And then the handful of guys in class, I was like, guys, have you ever asked a girl out? And all the guys raised their hand. And even the guys were like, yeah, but I only ever asked her out if I kind of knew she was going to say yes. And then I asked, then there's the black guy in my class, and I was like, well, the girl you asked out, were you sure she's going to say yes? He's like, no, man, it was a 50-50.
I don't remember the last time I asked anyone out
and you knew that
and thought there was a good solid chance
they're going to say yes. And that's black life. Like, you just, like, if you only get to move when you're sure about things, you don't move.
God, yeah. No, I mean, literally, I would get nothing.
You would get nothing.
Nothing done.
Nothing in this world. Like, black life from the beginning is shot through. We've normalized ourselves to risk and humiliation. And this is not a bad thing. And I'm going to talk about why this is, in some ways, a better thing. Because a white father doesn't produce a Venus. A white non-tennis playing father does not produce Venus and Serena Williams, because it would have taken too much humility, too much embarrassment, too much dedication, and too much craftiness to do that for your daughters. White fathers, if they're good, they get to transmit what they know. Whereas black fathers, if they're good, they're transmitting what they might kind of think might be the case, but they have to transmit it with confidence.
No, I was just sitting here thinking about just the whole idea of the benefits. You know, we talk about all the difficulties that black people are forced to deal with as they're going through life. Right. And it gives us life skills like how to deal with problems. I deal with other people and I'm like, have you never encountered an obstacle? Because you don't have any no critical thinking of how to get around this problem.
No, because it's never been at stake. it's never been at stake in the same way. So what we have, you have to understand that there are a few things going on, right? So it's not just that Richard Williams doesn't have R.T. Manning's knowledge, right? It's that it's important because this is the difference between being an erased and being a target. It's not just that you don't have the knowledge, it's that people are looking for you to fail and they kind of want you to fail. So it's not just that you're ignorant trying to figure this out, but like you can institutionalize some things. Like there are a lot of very like aggressive white moms who like don't know how to do all things, but they'll get their kid in lessons, and the teachers will help them out, and they have institutions that'll kind of fill in the gaps in their knowledge. All they have to do is be dedicated. Richard had to be dedicated. Williams had to be dedicated. Fill in the gaps with a system that's targeting him, which is aggressively trying to undermine his success. Remember that video with him and the reporter talking to his daughter, and Richard had to step in because at the time, Williams is fighting like 6 different battles. One of them is, oh yeah, how do you play tennis? And there's also, I was talking to a buddy, and she was like, look, one of the reasons he taught them to serve was because he couldn't return serves. So I better teach him how to serve real well, because I can't teach him how to return. I don't know.
Let's just knock this out. Let's just knock this out right now.
I'm going to teach him how to serve because I can kind of eyeball that. But I can't have them practice like watching me return serves or like return their serves. So we just serve all the time, and I can say that's good or bad because I don't know how to. If I try to return it, it'll go out because I can't return serves. It's hard. So and I'm like a 45-year-old guy who doesn't know how to do a lot of things. So that's one good reason why you have 2, right? So once one can serve to the others, and you can just kind of like eyeball it and just kind of like pay attention to footwork and stuff like that, things you can kind of figure out. But he's working with nothing. He's working with nothing with institutions targeting him for failure and exploitation. Right? So that's another thing. I know a lot of people, I know a lot of men, I know a lot of women, I know a lot of white women. There is no white woman, I know a ton of them. Going around the country clubs, yes. Ask for used balls, maybe. Used balls, maybe. There are some white women who will do this. I'm talking maybe Tanya Harding's mom. Carrying them around in a shopping cart? No. And then out there sweating, doing it, trying to coach your daughter into being excellent in a sport you've never done? No. The aggressive white moms will find the right coach.
They sit into the clubhouse enjoying drinks while the coach is out there.
Or they might be watching from the sideline, but they're not going to be out there with a tennis racket doing something they don't know how to do. But they're not going to be not knowing how to do it, right? Yeah, they're not going to be out there doing things they don't know how to do. And that's the embarrassment. And we're going to talk about black embarrassment. What black fathers do for embarrassment for their kids with this next video. Give me the second video. So understand this. So the black father might have had some boxing skills, some boxing acumen, and you can go on YouTube and find white fathers teaching their little daughters how to shoot because the father knows how to shoot, or teaching their little daughters how to box because the father knows how to box, and the father's using the kid's punching his hands. But this black father's look, if you're gonna do this right, you need to know what it's like to hit someone in the jaw.
Yeah.
And we're going to do this right. We're going to do serious. And you know what? I got a jaw.
Yeah.
Yeah, do it. All right, if you're going to do this right. That's what we do. That's black fatherhood. You're not going to find, I don't see any videos of any white fathers. They might be training their kids or building obstacle courses for their kids or teaching their kids how to shoot, teaching kids how to, I don't see any video with white fathers letting their daughters like
Well.
like whale 1-2 combinations, rear back, and take him out.
Oh yeah, no.
Because like we're serious about this. I'm gonna teach you how to do this. There's no substitute for learning how to hit a face. So
yeah, I have one of my little cousins. Like I watch her with her dad, and like it's no holds barred.
Yeah,
like, she's just going.
She's going at it.
And my goddaughter, like she's 12 now. It is no longer play. Like,
no.
You gotta
no,
be careful because
no.
if she hits you, you're like,
yeah, she'll go down. That girl can throw a punch. She'll always be able to throw a punch. She's serious, and her dad was serious about like, all right, you're gonna learn this game. I kind of know a little bit. I got some bugs, but like there's no substitute for hitting a face. So I'm gonna let you hit my face because that's what fatherhood is. And that's you got someone.
Well, someone mentioned that boxing is barbaric, though. I don't think boxing is what he was teaching her. He was teaching her to protect herself in this world. Like, I don't think he plans on her growing up to be a boxer. I think
maybe it is. Maybe I don't. I just know he was teaching what he knows the hard way.
Yeah.
In a way that with a quality of embarrassment, and that even your good white fathers aren't going to do. They're not going to take that embarrassment. And this is important. This is important because there are recent studies that come out that turns out black fathers help their kids with homework more than their white counterparts. Like we help our kids with schoolwork and like more invested in education. And I will tell you, I send my kids to an integrated daycare because it's like right close to me. You walk in, like it's just a bunch of black dads dropping off their kids. Black dads, some black moms, and then white moms. You don't like white dads don't drop off their kids at daycare. Like just not like you have exceptions and outliers, but like it's half the black kids have their dad dropping them, and then half have their mom because like that's just we show up. And there's other data that says I'll go over that data later, but just understand that black fathers are more invested in their kids' education than their white counterparts, and have been disproportionately punished in education than their white counterparts. So we're literally talking about black fathers who can barely read, helping their kids learn how to read.
Yeah, well, I mean, my dad, not good at math.
Right.
Trying to help me in middle school when I'm in advanced math classes. Like, and he didn't have YouTube to go learn and study up. He had to try to read the book ahead of me.
And then, because he wanted to be a dad. Yeah. No, like, understand what that means. The quality of humility and vulnerability and uncertainty that's just in black life. And we're still winning that game. We're more involved and more willing to do it. And so for 30 years, they've been doing studies. And for 30 years, studies have shown that black men have been more involved than other males in housework, tending to children, and sharing decision-making power. And I know you think, well, what about these black men? No, you need to look at some of these white men. You don't know what it's like in a white household. Unless you've been around a white household, these men are jerks.
It is not in the household. I just told you the story
in
a restaurant
Now,
the father started the chant and the family joined in.
Yeah, no, these men are jerks. And like, we're just not, it's just not in us like that. Like any black man over 25, right? Like forget the kids listening to the rap. Like any black man over 25, like they're not white men over 25. Like it's a qualitatively different dude. Because there are great books on this. Probably the best book with it all in it, although it's written pretty aggressively, is Tommy Curry's The Man Not. That's Tommy Curry, The Man Not. But there are other studies like the Staples study that shows that black men, more involved in housework. In marriage, they're more involved in housework, tending to children, and sharing decision-making power. Outside of marriage, we still have more involvement in kids' lives than our white counterpart. Outside of marriage, like, we're still there. And we practice social fathering just because there's an awareness of the violence and instability of black lives, which means we're taking care of other people's kids. And still doing it. and still doing it because like the varieties of manhood and masculinity and black masculinity in the United States was built with an eye towards vulnerability, not power. Like, we aren't trying to boss people around. We just are keenly aware of how vulnerable, like, black life is. That's what you saw in Richard Williams. He wasn't trying to boss his daughters around to exert power over him. No, he was keenly aware of how vulnerable they were.
And what's so interesting about that is thinking about that. White women get TV shows for being bossy and forcing their children to do things that they actually didn't want to do.
Yeah.
We can't even get a compliment.
Again, Black father, and like, you know, sometimes it looks like all sorts of things. It looks like Joe Jackson. These are not hard things that, like, there's a guy, I want to say his name was Morris Washington, Malavia Washington's dad. And it's funny because my uncle came over from Ghana and he had two daughters. And one of them played for the women's national team, the U.S. women's national team, Christina Frimpong. Now she's Tina Ellerton, 2007, 2008 soccer. And the other one played for college soccer and the Twins. Anyway, it was easier for him back then because he was teaching his, daughters how to play soccer amongst a bunch of white suburban dads who weren't putting in the time. So he was just out there doing drills with his kid, teaching him moves. He's African in soccer, is what we do. So yeah, like his daughters were like at the Bill of Oregon, and with the confidence that they turned that into a college scholarship, and then Tina went on to play for the U.S. national team. But just the idea that at least he knew how to do that, right? And he would spend the time with his kids. But a lot of black American fathers, they don't know 3 generations of material. And look, modern life is very complicated. It takes more than a generation of knowledge to make it, especially as a community, right? And it's not just that we lack the knowledge, it's that our communities are targeted. So we can't just send them. I don't expect my kids to learn anything in school. I'm sorry, I just don't. If my kids learn anything, it's going to be because I teach them. The good thing is I'm very good at teaching things. I'm very good at, so like my kids will learn all of the things. But school's nice, and I want them to go I tell my daughters, they'll repeat it. I teach you, you teach everybody else. My kindergartner can read right now. You know what she's in school doing? Teaching all the other kindergartners to read. Because you can't trust the teachers to do it, because they won't. That's just not.
Or they'll be selective.
Yeah, they won't teach your black kid to do it.
Yeah.
Like the white teachers are not going. And this is what the thing. Richard Williams can't just send Venus and Serena out to a tennis camp and just let it be. Because what happens is we end up being chum for all of the white girls that the tennis coaches will either unconsciously or consciously just pay more attention to. Like, we'll end up being training dummies or practice squad, like practice dummies.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I never learned an instrument. Like, I repeatedly tried to learn an instrument, and every time I'd walk into class, and I'm the guy who doesn't have any experience with people who have been doing it multiple years.
Right.
And so
that's it. And in classical music, we call that the black viola problem. Right? So in order to have a string quartet, you need a viola player. But violinists tend to be a little bit elitist, so none of them want to switch over and learn how to play the viola. So what happens is, if there's a black person in the vicinity who's who's a violin player, the teacher will make the black person switch to viola. So there are a ton of black violas. Because they were all switched so that the white kids could play violin. And so that everyone can play.
And I wanted to play violin.
Yeah, you wanted to play violin. So like the elitists and like they would let you play violin for a little bit and then switch you over to viola. Yeah. We just need you to play viola so that all the other white kids can play violin. So it's a black viola problem. So Venus and Serena Williams, they go to a tennis camp and they end up spending a disproportionate amount of time shagging balls, and nobody knows why. Except us and Richard Williams. So he had to take care of this like himself while knowing nothing. And he's figuring out as it goes. So black fatherhood is is a beautiful thing, and you're willing to do two things. And I want to make this clear: Black fathers are willing to be are willing to teach things they don't know, and are also willing to be embarrassed even when they're teaching things that they do know at a disproportionate rate, because that's what it takes. That's what it takes, right? That's what it takes. And I could talk about Earl Williams and Dwight Washington and I've seen it in and out at lower grades, because like you don't have to be the best at everything to have to, but if you want your kids to do anything, if you're Black, you're gonna have to teach them things you don't know and suffer a disproportionate amount of embarrassment, because for Black people, if you want to do anything in life, you're going to have to suffer a disproportionate amount of embarrassment. That means we just don't put our dignity in the same places. And this is attested in studies, multiple studies. If Black people if Black men put their dignity in the same place white men put it in, you just don't make it. Like you're not paying for you can't put your dignity in paying for some girl's dinner, man. You know she earns more than you do at a more steady job. Like you got to put your dignity in other places, and which might be one of the reasons we're better at sex. I'm just saying. We put our dignity in different places. You've never seen a white Kappa and white. Well, there are no white fraternities where they're like.
I'm gonna say, I actually know
one white fraternity
guy who in a Kappa.
The white Kappa shit. Yeah. We gotta put our dignity in different places.
His ears are burning right now. He's like, you better say I can do it.
Yeah. But like, you're not gonna see no white fraternity up there like putting their dignity in that place.
Let's talk about what white fraternities are talking about. They just got the front page of the Red and Black where they were complaining that they weren't going to be allowed to have hard booze.
Yeah.
And now this was going to destroy fraternity life because girls don't like beer.
Yeah, and the whole goal is that I need to get them incapacitated so they can sleep with them.
Like that, literally. Front page of the
I saw the news. That was
really
funny. So like we can't pay for things, so we got to get better at other things.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
You just find out more and more talents irony is hiding.
So Black masculinity. There's a great book by R.W.S. Carnell called Masculinities, and it shows that like masculinity is not all one thing. There's like hegemonic masculinity might be a thing. It's just not a Black thing. Because we spent all of our lives like under the aspect of vulnerability, not like hegemonic power. So like we have a very Black masculinity is a thing, and it's very masculine. It just doesn't look anything like white masculinity. It looks a lot like Richard Williams. Or it looks like a lot like that dad teaching his kid how to box by letting him beat her face.
No.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, someone asked me recently because they were talking about I was working on a bid, and they were like, "You know how to do so many different things. Like, where did you?" And I'm like, "My father."
I had to learn how to do.
Yeah, like my dad was a towelman. He had to learn how to do bids. I didn't get to go run around and not follow him. I owe him one day the biggest apology because I realized how much stuff he actually taught me.
And he didn't know a lot.
Yeah.
It's not like a cup running over.
Oh, yeah, no. Like, you know, even the machines. I've been around the print machines my entire life because of my dad.
Right.
You know, so learning how to write a proposal and so forth and so on. I didn't get that in a class. No. I got that from watching my father do it and him showing me under the idea that one day this is going to be your job to do this.
And not with a ton of success.
Yeah.
It's like you taught, and he taught you like, because he had written all the bids right and failed.
Yeah.
And then his hand got up, so you also learned how to just keep going when you fail.
Oh, yeah. You know, he would write bids that were low.
Right.
Like, because he was like, that's going to be how I get the job, not because my talent, my work ethic, or I'm going to have to be half their price.
Yeah, we have to do a half times better and then charge a little bit less.
Yeah,
1.5 times better and then charge still undercut the price.
Yeah, and still you're competing with a lot of white cousins out there. So like that might not even Yes, yes, you are. Who don't even have to show up and present the idea. No. They have their friends show up and be like, well, we need this $11,000 for this. There's no real detail how we're going to spend it, but give it to us anyway.
Yeah. No, that's the truth. I mean, he's just talking about a bit he was just put together. So this is very important. Like, we have to understand like what's involved in Black fatherhood, and let's give a shout out to the Black fathers in your life who are holding it down, knowing nothing. And this is very funny because there's this great report, the Chetty report that just came out. Race and economic opportunity in the United States. It pretty much said, I'll just read it. All right, so I might have a graphic. Conditional on parent income, the black and white gap is driven entirely by large differences in wages and unemployment rates between black and white men. There are no such differences between black and white women. So what that means is, and this is what I talked to my class about this. It's funny because I got some sisters in my class too, one brother and a bunch of sisters, and we were joking around. I was like, all right, so you end up with a white guy, you get a balloon, is what that says, and you end up with a black guy, you get an anchor. So I said, like, I had a talk with my wife. I'm like, you're marrying me. The better for worse means something. It means something. So when I get arrested the next time, she knows the lawyer to call. And like, if I come home and say, well, I lost my job, there's not going to be a surprise. There's no shock. Better for worse means something when you marry a black guy. That's just... So, the report's very clear. Once again, it's race and economic opportunity in the United States. The author's name is Chetty, Chetty. And the bit I read is just from the abstract. The New York Times did a report on this report. Pretty much said generational wealth, generational poverty are things. It's racialized. It's tied to men. And that's that. So, yeah. Yeah.
So what you're saying is basically involving yourself in any way with black men, other than arresting.
You pay a penalty. You pay a penalty.
Okay.
You might get promoted if you
arrest
us, punish us, willing to talk.
Run us over with a car, you get $40,000 bonus and a new job on Monday.
Yeah, defend us, you might get fired.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people in this world. I bet you a lot of people in YouTube land. How many of you guys have lost a job or had strained relationship for defending black men? That's kind of a lot. That thing happens even when the black man is yourself. But like that's kind of a thing. That might have gotten more people. Usually I say that's killed more people than the Klan. But like that's fired more people than harassment.
You know,
like actually caring about black men.
Yeah. No, I'm thinking about my friends.
Strained more relationships.
My friends from YouTube,
yeah,
who are very vocally defenders of black men.
It's hard out there.
Their numbers are not as good as my friends who don't have those habits.
Right. Like it's trashing black men is lucrative.
Oh, that's a whole different thing. Trashing black men will get you like 1 million views in a heartbeat.
Trashing black men is a lucrative thing. So I'm doing this in defense of black fatherhood because it's complicated out there. We do more with less and nicer about it, and like. So thank you, black fathers. Maybe show this to all your black fathers in your life. When Father Days come around, remember this video and sit down with your black father and say, like, watch this. This guy actually cares about black fatherhood and actually gets it. Right? And not all black fathers are Richard Williams, but like some of them, like more disproportionately by the numbers, more are trying. We try with less and we're still doing it. Like, think about all those black fathers who are out there helping with math homework that they don't know because they either went to poor schools or the teacher was too busy sending them to ISS rather than teach them. But they're still out there with their shorty, doing the best they can.
And I feel bad because I honestly owe my dad an apology for that because I got frustrated with him trying to help me.
Yeah,
and he was doing.
He didn't know.
He didn't know.
He didn't know.
You're great. My child is great at math. I am horrible at it. But I'm gonna sit here at this table with him and try to figure it out. And I'm sitting here thinking, you are slowing me down from going outside to play.
Look, we only did so many things for so long. And so we don't have 3 generations of architects. Not 3 generations. Not 3 generations. We don't have, and then in black descendants of slaves, you don't have 3 generations of architects. You don't have 3 generations of quarterbacks. We don't have 3 generations of most of the things. We don't have 3 generations of plumbers or HVAC mechanics. We don't have. So like with our half generation.
Can we get 2?
Can we?
I mean.
No, like the studies I looked at were in the 50s. The 40s and the 50s. So, no, we have 3 generations of domestic help so we can clean things and we can cook and we can do what we can. But, like, we don't have 3. There are a lot of things in this world. And even today, black people only do 13 of them. Like, we're pretty much, like, cordoned off in 13 jobs. And there are a lot of things that can be done that just we don't have generations worth of knowledge to learn how to do. And the modern world has gotten so complicated and so culturally specific, like it takes more than a generation to be a thing. And like, look at Bill Gates' dad. Bill Gates' dad did intellectual property law. Bill Gates didn't make his money doing computer programming. He made his money eating other people's intellectual property. Like that's generational knowledge.
Somewhere right now, Steve Jobs is like, "Thank you, someone recognized me."
Like that's how Bill Gates made his money, and that's generational knowledge.
And the other thing I think people don't look at when we talk about this is that think of the time difference. Black fathers are having to work twice as hard to make the money and still finding time to do it. It's not like my dad had one job. My dad had like. Well, at any
who knows
multiple jobs.
Yeah, multiple jobs. He's black. And this is another thing my class got a kick out of because, like, a lot of the white girls admitted that, like, if they have a chance, they can find a guy who's going to be a breadwinner. Yeah. And I look at the black women. Black women, those are white dreams. Don't expect your guys to be a breadwinner. Yeah. Like, black women have always worked, and black men have worked when they could. There's a difference. Yeah. Black women have always worked. They're hire us when the season was right.
When our hair was the way they wanted it.
Before the immigrant waves, like black men have worked when they could, and black women have always worked. So like, there's going to be a difference. So if you're looking for like some breadwinner as a black man, you got white dreams. Find a nice guy who rubs your feet. Because that's what we can do.
We are one day going to have a show that is nothing but clips of things we learned about Irby.
Randomly. I was not a capper.
Actually, I need that shimmy as a gift. I need one of y'all out there to make that shimmy a gift.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. If you like what I'm doing, if you support what I'm doing, please go over to thefunkyacademic.com. This was worth your $5 a month, $15 if you got it like that, $50 a month, and that's how we can make this thing grow. Thank you for your time and pay rent. So thank you for your time, and I'll see you next week.